Welcome back to Supercoach. I hope you're all dealing with the heat wherever you may be. I'm not. I'm still up and it's 11 p.m. where I am. I can't sleep. I don't deal with the heat so well. But I have another team preview for you all today. And I want to start by saying that I'm nowhere near confident enough to be talking about the in-depth stuff with these other teams. But I promise I'll try my best. So please forgive me if I make mistakes or miss stuff that might be obvious to you Brisbane Lions fans. So we all know the Lions won the flag last year, and it's pretty obvious that they should be contending again in 2025. But for me, there's probably three main questions here. So how are they going to function without Danaher? How are they going to fit in all these defenders in the one team? And what does the midfield mix look like with the Ashcrofts? So the addition of Levi and Will is said to be getting more CBAs, or at least that's what people think. So I'll start with the Danaher question first. He's not a man that they can replace easily, but to be honest, I'm surprised they didn't go harder for a key forward in the trade period, but you know, they got what they got. There's Logan Morris, so he showed that he's effective as the third tool, but you know, he's got great potential and stuff, but he lacks the size to replace Danaher. He's only like 191 centimetres, which by today's standards is not big enough to be key position, really. There's also the fact that Danaher was the second ruck, and based purely on this, I've got Sam Day in the team here in that role. I don't really rate Hipwood, if I'm honest, but yeah, there's a couple of rookies who are that ruck and key forward type, but I think a team in the window is more likely to go with some experience and worry about the youth later. I could be wrong though. If Sam Day does get that role, I could see him averaging 70 or thereabouts, but you know, to be an actual pick, he'd need to average around 83 to make the required money, so that rules him out of Supercoach relevancy, unless you think that he could go better, obviously. As for the defender part, from what I can see here, we've got Duday versus Leicester for one spot, where I've got the question marks, and then I guess there's Wilmot, Answorth, and McKenna fighting for the other. Now, I'm a Crom supporter, so you know I'm not like very educated on the setup for Brisbane, if I'm honest. So I could be completely wrong there, but I think Wilmot is ahead out of those three. But yeah, don't put your house on it. I guess that's why I included the question marks, because I wasn't confident enough to lock in some players there. So let me know in the comments what you would be looking at for a best 22. I suppose I couldn't fit McCarthy in if he's back from injury, but basically because of the heroics of Archie and Lohman on grand final day. But I can see McCarthy maybe nabbing that sub spot, because he's pretty experienced and pretty important to what they do, apparently. I think the difficulty in attempting to pick this team, though, is definitely a testament to how strong it is, and I can't see too much changing given that they've got a winning formula. I mean, can you? So there might be some changes, I guess, in the midfield, but not major ones. So how's it going to look? I mean, I don't know, to be honest. Again, I'm not expecting drastic changes to a winning formula, but I'm sure there'll be some minor ones. So if we refer here to the data from the CBA splits video that I did, Brisbane were the team that came out on top, or at least they're the team that used their first three mids the most. They're also the team that used mids 4 to 6 the least of any team as well. So there's complete reliance really on the first three and not much else after that. So we can see here that Will Ashcroft, he was the fourth mid with 33% CBAs. And even into the finals on grand final day, McCluggage here, he was the favoured number 3. So even on grand final day, he had 32% more CBAs than Ashcroft. So while Ashcroft, obviously, he won the Norm Smith. We all saw how good he was. I don't think, to be honest, that it's a foregone conclusion that he becomes the new number 3. So both players are versatile enough to function outside of the guts. We've seen McCluggage on the wing and Ashcroft spent time at half forward and stuff, but for that reason, it doesn't really help us predict what could happen, because they both easily could go out of there. Obviously, it won't be both, but you know what I mean. So my completely unqualified guess is that McCluggage is going to stay in that role as number 3, at least for now. It just doesn't make sense to me to change what clearly has been working, and I think given his age, like, we forget that he's still very young, there still might be a tendency to protect Ashcroft a bit and use him on the outside or as that half forward that just, becomes that extra mid. Think like Flanders late last year, or, a Dylan Moore type, maybe something like that. But on the flip side, I'm pretty confident that Rayner and Berry will remain as the 5th and 6th mids. The only way I can see this not happening is if they try and use Rayner more as that third tool up forward to help cover the loss of Danaher, but it's probably pretty unlikely. I don't think he's big enough, although he is good in the air. So then how does Levi Ashcroft fit in, you're probably wondering? I am too. We know he had the shoulder surgery late last year, and he may still be recovering a little bit from that. So similar to Draper at the Crom, I hear that they're holding him back somewhat. So, given the strength of the team, I doubt they'll be rushing him in before he's 100% ready. So he may not even play round 1, is what I'm hearing. Once he is there, though, I imagine he'll be used somewhat sparingly in the midfield. Like, he'll still get CBAs, but not maybe as many as people think. My best guess is that he's going to take Bailey's CBAs here at the very least, because Bailey seems to have dropped off a cliff a bit as a player, and the way he's going, he might find himself in sub territory, I reckon. But who knows? I'm a Crom nuffy, like a Crom fan. I don't know the inner workings of Brisbane. Maybe see someone like DR for that kind of stuff. And the kick-ins down here, Zorko is clearly the top dog with the kick-ins last year, and I don't see a reason why this would change. Like, Coleman coming back, but he doesn't take that many kick-ins anyway, so I think McKenna's really going to get it. He's going to struggle to get a game, so I think Starcevic, Lester, or Duday will probably take up that small amount that he was taking. One of them. Duday was never a massive kick-in taker at the Crom, though, but he is a good kick, so maybe. I think, though, with Zorko taking such a large amount and he plays on 91% of the time, that's a lot of free points, so that's good for Zorko. So I think now's a pretty good time to discuss him a little more in depth. So he'll be 36 by the time the season starts, but he just keeps on defying Father Time. I guess these days with the advances in sports science and stuff like that, we're seeing players stay impactful for longer into their careers, so they're not just, limping to the end anymore. I guess we can see hamstring and calf injuries here that he's missed games for, but, granted, that doesn't look great, but all these numbers here, so all these years, they're from when he was already into his 30s, so I guess there's always going to be some soft tissue kind of stuff going on for players in their 30s. He's not actually missed that many games, though, to injury. It's only 11 there over 5 years, and yet he seems to be labelled as pretty injury-prone, so that was a bit of a shock, I guess. They aren't really serious injuries, though, at least. It's not like he's missing huge blocks for a single injury and stuff like that. And that current role he's playing, like that half-back role, it's got to be far less stressful physically on his body. So we'll come down to here. Here's 16.4 points less in losses. So it's probably not the greatest look there. It's a fair discrepancy, but as long as Brisbane are winning plenty of games and contending, and I expect they will be, I don't think this is going to be much of an issue. I mean, he's still going the ton average in losses anyway, so yeah, it's good primo numbers. He's ultra consistent here with his pre and post buy averages. There was no role change at all through the season, so yeah, that's what that looks like. Points per disposal down here. That looks good at 4.1, which is above the 4-point threshold that I like personally. I guess others may have different opinions, but to be honest, I haven't seen anyone else really cover it, so I got no idea. So his high amount of kick-ins obviously helped there. Like, they provide a nice buffer or a safety zone at least. 3 points, like I said before, so that's really good for him. His points per minute is great, and he's still playing a good amount of game time here. Like for a guy that's 36, 83% game time is really good. So it's pretty remarkable. I guess one question is, how is Coleman going to impact his scoring? And how is he going to impact Coleman? I'll get to that when I cover Coleman later. But yeah, both of them back there, we haven't really seen them together, like both playing that role. So I guess my gut feel is that it won't really affect Zorko. I think it's more likely to affect Coleman, and you'll see why later. We know how he can score, like Zorko can score in this role, and I can't see him losing that spot, even with Coleman back in the team. And all his numbers here look great. And the only one that might not is that win-loss average there, that's minus 16. But again, that's not so bad given he's in the perfect team to be doing that in. So while I don't really see any value here, I do see him as a fairly safe pick, to be honest. So I think the main question with him is just whether he can stay fit and keep defying his age. So now I'll take a look at the man I just mentioned, Kitty Coleman. So all his numbers are taken from 2023 here because he did that ACL in round 0 last year, and he obviously missed the entire season. So I guess you all know that anyway. Otherwise, I doubt you'd be watching a Supercoach vid, but thought I'd better mention it. So yeah, he does appear to be quite injury prone. It's probably not as bad as I expected though. It's mainly that one ACL and that one hamstring issue over the last 5 years. Like the eye injury could have happened to anyone. So yeah, probably not as bad as I thought, but it's still not great. That being said, he misses a lot of games anyway. So regardless of why that is, that's a red flag first up. But we can see that he's got the ability to score well. So if you think back to the 2023 grand final, he had like 183 disposals to half time. Kind of went missing a bit after that. But he's never seemed able to do that for like a whole season. So this 87 that he averaged here in 2022, I guess that's the closest. But what changed in 2023 that dropped him down here to a 71 average? So keep in mind, he needs to average roughly 77 to at least be a successful cash cow and make 150k. So I've said before that I still just deal in the 150k because it's easier, and if they fall a little bit short, they're still fine. So what I found was in 2023, his disposal efficiency dropped by 8%. It doesn't sound like much, but that can make a fair difference, especially when he's not really a contested player. Part of it as well, we had a little bit of a role change. He started to spend a bit more time up the ground and even on the wing in 2023 for little stints. Yeah, a quick look at his heat maps shows all that, and then it's no coincidence that in the 2023 grand final and the other games where he scored like a primo, he played purely halfback. So I don't think it's a huge issue, because in his only game of 2024, which was round 0, he was back playing that halfback role. So I think that's the intention for him going forward, but how that fits in with Zorko, that's the big question. So if we come down to here with his pre and post buy scoring in 2023, this massive jump of 20 points in the second half of the year, this is explained purely by one thing, I reckon, and that's the absence of Daniel Rich. So Daniel Rich was also playing that, they call it like the quarterback role, I guess, of half back there. So you had Rich and Coleman together. But this now, because Rich is gone, but this raises a red flag for me, because instead of Rich pre-buy, we're now looking at Zorko in the Rich position. So is Coleman going to revert back to this kind of thing and be scoring like low because he can't exist with Zorko? I don't know. I'll move on for now. So he's got the good the PPD here. So it's nice to know that he doesn't need like 46 disposals to get a 101. Think of like a Parish or someone like that. And his points per minute, it's not the greatest, obviously, but it is dragged down by his pre-bye scoring here. So without Rich in the team, it actually climbed up to 0.92, which is more like what we'd want to see, I think. So that's very low tog, though, for that role. So it suggests that there's more meat on the bone there as well if he can increase his tog and get a bit fitter. Basically, I'm not going to be picking him because I just can't get past his lack of durability up here. And the other big red flag for me is how's he going to go with Zorko? So if his compatibility with Rich was anything to go by, it's not looking great, as I can't see Zorko being moved out of that role yet. I mean, they won a flag with him there, and it worked really bloody well. So I suppose, he's at this discounted price here, so that lessens the risk. But for me, there's other safer options right now. Now, I couldn't do a Lions video without Lachie Neale, obviously. I mean, he's an absolute star of the comp, and he's been Supercoach royalty for a long time. So, barring 2021, we can see he's also really bloody durable. He's only missed one game in those other 4 seasons, if we don't count 21. And apparently he played this season with a pretty painful heel injury as well, so he's tough as nails. He is almost 32 now, but I don't think he's going to decline too much just yet. So we can see, just like Zorko, and to be honest, most of these Brisbane players are all the same, but their win averages is far greater than the loss. But I think there's 2 main points to be made here with Neale. So first one, obviously, Brisbane, as I said before, they're going to win plenty of games, or we think they will. And it's also been suggested for years that Brisbane need Neale to play well to win. I obviously don't think it's that simple, but there is a little bit of truth to it, I think. I mean, he's their best player, so you think of Bulldogs, if Bont plays really, really well, they're a better chance of winning. So I think his post-buy increase here, 4.5 points on average, is a pretty good indicator that he isn't slowing down anytime soon. I mean, it's not like he got tired in the second half of the year, anything like that. So that, while that number's not big, I think that's a huge sign right there. His points per disposal, admittedly, it's a little low for an uber primo mid, and I think it explains why he's prone to some very low scores when he fails to break the tag. But his ceiling's ridiculous, so it more than evens that out. Points per minute is great, and his tog is still above average, I think, for that that inside mid role, like for the the top inside mids. So there's another sign that he's not slowing down. I think for me, the CBAs is where it starts to get interesting for Neale, though. Despite being able to score really well in any of these 3 CBA percentage brackets that he had last year, his best is easily in the 70 to 80 over here. So keep in mind his average CBA percentage was 86%. So that's in here, and it's still a little above where we want him to be, which, based purely on this, we'd want him down here. Now, it's hard to believe, but this suggests a scenario where Neale could actually be value. Obviously not likely, but the raw numbers say it could be. So let's say the Lions decide to lessen his CBA load a little to try and prolong his career, and if the Ashcrofts get that expected rise in CBAs, he could fall down into here. Like, his average could fall down. What's he need? He needs to drop 7% to get into here. So it could happen. And then, I mean, I'm not suggesting he could sustain that 137 all year, but the numbers are here for a rough idea, because that's well clear of like these 2 brackets. Just food for thought, I guess. Now, his small rise in CBAs when the Lions are losing, that suggests that Fagan still relies on him, obviously, when shit hits the fan, but it's not a significant rise. It's just more of a safety thing, I think. Overall, I think he's a safe pick despite his age and that little bit of uncertainty around the new CBA mix, but he'll still be the top dog. It could even work in his favour, as I've just highlighted here. But like any of these Brisbane players, the early buy just isn't good, so they got that going against them, and yeah. Obviously, I I can't talk as much about Brisbane players as the Crom ones, so probably going to be a bit of a shorter video, or a little shorter than that other one. But yeah, I'm doing my best. So yeah, Lockie Neal. So I guess for every Batman, there's a Robin. So if Lockie Neal's Batman, then Dunkley is his Robin. And to be honest, I am increasingly seeing the beauty of picking these number two midfield guys like Dunkley. So they might not have the crazy ceiling, but they do avoid the taggers, and so they don't usually have those really, really low floor games like Neil is a little prone to. Um, yeah, they also seem to just score well, but they fly under the radar as super coaches for some reason. I don't know why, but they're just not talked about that much. They just kind of quietly get the job done. So I really love this. Like, it's got huge appeal to me given the carnage of my team last year. So yeah, there's something to be said for that. But Dunkley, he looks durable. I think he may have had a couple of issues like we can see here back when he was at the Dogs, but since he's got to Brisbane, he's only had that corked calf, and that's another injury that could just happen to anyone. So it's not like he's prone or anything. He has had a little decrease in his average this year. What's that? It's 3.4 points or something. But I'm not worried about that at all. It's pretty hard to keep improving on averages year after year when they get to this high. I think he's that safe, like 110 type anyway, at a minimum. So yeah, can pick with confidence there. Obviously, he's another Lion that scores better in the wins, but it's not quite as extreme as the others that we've already seen. And again, it's no problem because Lions, contending team, all that stuff. Very consistent pre and post buy. Didn't change the role all year, same as Neil. They're clearly 1 and 2. This is really good. Again, like, yeah, I'm loving this. Points per disposal is very good, and just for comparison, it's equal with Zach Butters, and we know what he can do. So, yeah, he's right up there. Points per minute and his targets all pretty nice and standard for a primo in this role. Do you kind of get the gist with Dunkley yet? Like, it's all safe and consistent. I absolutely love it. If it wasn't for the buy, I reckon I'd be picking him. I still might, honestly. I don't know. His CBAs don't tell us much though, I think, like just looking at this. So he clearly scores amazingly in this 90 to 100 percent bracket, but his next best is then in the 60 to 70. So like there's this weird dip here. I think it's slightly skewed because his 3 games in this 60 to 70 bracket here, one of them was a 144 against Port. The other 2 scores were pretty standard. I think they're like 100 and 110. So, yeah, that 144 absolutely skewed things, being a small sample size of 3 games. So, I think he's obviously one of those where he's actually just better the more CBAs he can get, and he will get them. So, I can't see him losing many CBAs, if any at all, to accommodate the Ashcrofts or whatever's going on. So again, safe, but yeah, he's more consistent here. Oh, sorry, there's more consistency here with his CBAs, in the wins and the losses here. So again, like this is almost even. So he's that set and forget type for us and for Papa Fags, which is, yeah, it's a really good sign. So that shitty early buy aside, I guess all I can say is Dunkley's just like a picture of safety and consistency as a pick. So you can pick him with complete confidence. If the buy doesn't bother you, like you can still pick him. There's people out there that think that the buy doesn't matter. Like if you can do the maths and work out what you stand to lose or what you require out of a replacement player that week, like it's no issue. It's just whether you want to go with that strategy or not. And, you know, it works for some and it doesn't work for others, I guess. He's only in 1% of teams currently, which is quite amazing. And that makes him a pod. And I don't think pods come much safer than him. And to be honest, I keep saying he's safe and consistent. And that's really all I can say. Like, I can't say any more about the guy. This guy, though, is far from a safe pick, in my opinion. So straight off the bat, he needs to average around 109 to be considered a successful pick. So you want to be picking him as a keeper. So that 108 to 110 range is normally M8. And if you're going to take it off the 150k, which I don't know why you would, if he's scoring 109, he's keeper anyway. But that's, that 109 is where he'd need to be if you want to cash in the 150k. So straight away, like that's huge. You can see here that's going to be a big jump. So to be honest, there's not a great amount of data to go off with him. So there's a bit of another red flag. Not his fault, but he's obviously a great player and stuff, and he was picked 2 for a reason. I guess we can see that he scored well in his first season, and then, once he was fit again in 2024, he was scoring really well. So why am I so off this pick then after having him in my initial team? So I guess I'll explain it. So firstly, in his defense, his win versus loss average is skewed, and his 2023 numbers are a 73 average in losses and 91 in wins. So it's basically the opposite. So which is the more accurate one? I mean, who knows? Seriously, this is one of the problems with him. Like, I don't know which is the real one. So hopefully for the sake of the pick, he just scores better in the wins, like his teammates. So his points per disposal is well below the 4-point minimum that I like to see. He's got the 4th lowest of all the Supercoach relevant midfielders. Go watch that video if you haven't already to see the full spread. But yeah, that in itself is a red flag for me, even if it's just a small one. His points per minute and his TOG, I can see them both increasing. The TOG is still quite low for a midfielder. So his adjusted average here, there's actually a little jump there. If you take out the sub games and all that, this is his real average. So it's it's a bit higher than what's listed here, but it's still about 20 points shy of where he needs to be, like where he needs to jump to though to be that successful pick. So I don't think we can tell too much from his CBA sweet spot here. And again, if you haven't watched that video, go watch that one, the CBA sweet spots. Yeah, again, there's just not really enough data to give a good picture with this guy. So jump over to here, and his CBAs and the wins and losses also shows that I think Fags likely prefers the more experienced McCluggage when things aren't going right. So he'll revert back to that top 3 that Brisbane use so often. And that's not a knock on the kid, but, Fags got a flag doing it. So, yeah, not the greatest sign, I guess, even if it is only a little drop here. Yeah, so we can't tell too much from over here with the brackets. Like, it's all over the shop because, again, there's just not a hell of a lot of data. My gut feel with Ashcroft is that there's too many questions and there's not enough answers. I should say yet, but I don't know what we're going to be able to tell between now or maybe round 0, but there's just there's uncertainty over where he fits in the CBA split. Like, how many CBAs is he going to be getting? If he's the 4th man, I'm sorry, but there's no way he's going to be scoring well enough to be even like an M8. Yeah, can he even consistently score enough? I don't know. Granted, his grand final game was amazing, but keep in mind again that he has to raise that average by over 20 points a game. So he may well be able to do that, but it's too risky for me personally. There's proven scorers as well, like Chera, that are around the same price, and although Chera's body is an issue, at least that's pretty much the only question with him. So I still think Ashcroft's not a bad pick if you believe in him, obviously, but I think I see more reasons not to pick him than to pick him for now. Yeah, I'm more about safety, I think, this year, and not on every pick, but just, a bit of that consistency, see Dunkley again for what I'm trying to say. So yeah, the last player I'm going to discuss, he's another guy who's had ACL issues. And it's Tom Doedee, the ex-Crow. He's a perfectly cromulent player, I must say. I was sad to see him leave, but I also understand why he left. I guess it's opened the door for Worrell as well a lot more. Now, all his numbers here are based on 2023 because he did that ACL in pre-season last year. So he obviously missed the season. He also did ACLs in 2023 and 2019. So that's 3 in total, and that is a massive red flag. So that aside, though, we'll still have a look. His loss average is clearly better, and that's going to hurt him if the Lions are where we think they're going to be. He's the opposite to his teammates. He's a really good defender deep. Like, don't get me wrong, he's a good defender's defender, and he gets those intercepts and the 1%ers and stuff. But he's not one for getting involved in the rebound play much, or at least he wasn't at the Crom. So I think that is what explains that differential a bit. We can also see here, if you keep the Crom in mind, you can see that as the Crom improved, his scores dropped. So that's not a good sign for now being at Brisbane at all. His points per minute is not exactly ideal, but he has got good TOG. I guess, though, given that you'd be only picking him as a money maker and not as a keeper, this doesn't really matter so much. Like, you just need him to get to where he needs to get to. Points per disposal is really good. For comparison's sake, he is equal with Tom Stewart on the 4.5 there. But, yeah, hardly the same player. So if we take away the durability issues here, and there's a lot of them, and the fact that he hasn't got any good knees left anymore, there's still the question of whether he could make that required money. So he needs to average roughly 75 to make 150k, and he's gone above that 3 times here, as we can see. So by the numbers, it's completely possible, but again, he doesn't score well in those stronger teams. He needs heaps of ball in that back 50. I guess there's also a chance that he isn't in the best 22. Like, I think fully fit he would be, and that's like prior to the ACLs, or at least the last one, but now that he's had 3 of them, who's to say he's even going to be the same player? Like, we've seen it before. Like, great players come back and they're just not the same. So, I guess Brisbane fans, let me know in the comments where you see him. And Leicester as well, because I think they're fighting for a position. Is there room for only one of them, or both, or none, or what? I don't know. So back to Duday. Like, as much as I really like him as a player, I'm not going to be picking him. There's way too many red flags here. It's simple as that. And I've only included him because I've seen people talking about him as a money maker and stuff, which is, it's totally fair to be having a look at him for sure. But, you know, you do this closer inspection and, yeah, it's not great. So that's it for this preview. I'm not going to cover Levi Ashcroft because, truthfully, I don't feel like I'm qualified to do it. I don't put enough time into the draftees, and I probably should, but there's just not enough hours in the day right now. You know, I got a wife and kids and stuff and work and all that, and I play footy myself and all that kind of stuff, so it gets on top of you. I only just got this video out before midnight, and most of you will be watching it tomorrow, so I guess, though, the streak is still alive, and this brings it up to 17 days. Honestly, I can't believe that I've actually managed to get it that far, but thanks to all you viewers that completely make it worth it. I guess on that note, I'll see you all in tomorrow's video, and thanks for watching. Have a good one.